Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm going to apologize for the way I sound or if I could start coughing during this. I've been sick with bronchitis and I'm just getting over it. And um, this is probably going to go on, it's getting real as well as the church website because um, we're having Gideon Sunday this Sunday and the Gideons are coming in and they're speaking today, and so I won't be speaking, so I'll just post this to both, and that way we'll have um, a talk anyway. Today I want to talk with us. It's coming from Romans 1:12. Let me turn to Romans 1:12, and then we'll get started. Go through Acts. Romans is right behind Acts. 1:12. It says, "That is, that I may be encouraged together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me." And as I read that verse the other day, I got to thinking, am I an encourager of other Christians? That's what we as Christians should be to one another. We should encourage one another in all of our endeavors, in what our missions, our life in general. We should be there to encourage and not to tear down. In our world teaches us that we don't need to encourage people. We need to try, we need to try to beat them down. We need to try to tear them down so they can't do better than we do. You know, Kids learn to be better than others. Be better with your grades. Be better in sports. Um, be better, have a better social status than so and so. You can't play with that child because of so and so. And that's not what we're supposed. That's not the way we're supposed to be. In God's eyes, we all are equal. It don't matter what color skin you are, what sex you are. In His eyes, we all are equal. Jesus died for every one of us. He didn't pay our sin debt based on what social status we was or how much money we had in the bank or how smart we were. He paid our sin debt based on us being sinners. And he told us that we all are sinners and the wages of sin is death. And so we need to not only affirm ourselves, but others. The world teaches us that we need to affirm ourselves by how much money we have in the bank account, or how many toys do we have, or what our success status is. It seems as if we're in a competition, and we have to be better than someone else. It makes us feel better to look out there and see somebody's got it worse than we do. Um, and that comes from pride. Understand anything that comes from pride, anything that we can feel prideful in, that comes from Satan. Because what pride does, pride removes us from the ability to say that, look at what God has given us, to the ability to say, look at what I've done for myself, look at what I've accomplished. And the truth of the matter is, I haven't accomplished anything that God hasn't allowed me to accomplish. I haven't created anything that God hasn't given me the ability to do. I haven't purchased anything or owned anything that God has not set up for me to purchase or own. He's just lending it to me for a time being, because you see, God owns everything. Everything I hear is God's, and He is allowing us to use it. And we need to understand that in our world today, it's mixed up. And it will try to tell us that we don't need to encourage others. But God tells us that we are to encourage others, especially other believers. We should already realize and know how hard it is to be a follower of Christ and live in this sinful world. So we should understand the need to encourage others to grow in their walk with Jesus, to grow to be more like Jesus. We need to encourage them to read God's word so that they begin to understand that they're to be encouragers. They need to understand, so they begin to understand what God has called them to do. We need to be praying for others, encouraging others by praying for them for understanding and wisdom. We can't grow in God if we don't understand God's word. We can't grow in God if He doesn't give us the wisdom of His word to understand it. And when we begin to understand God's word, then we begin to obey God's word, which is what we were created to do. This right here, home builders, contractors, they have building plans they have to follow. Teachers create something called lesson plans. Every profession has some type of planning they have to do so that they will do the proper procedure at the proper time. And so they obey that plan. They go by that plan. Well, this is God's plan for us. The Bible is God's blueprint for us. And if we don't read God's blueprint, just like if a contractor doesn't follow the blueprint for building the house is not going to be built correctly. So if we don't study God's word and follow God's word and obey God's word, our spiritual life will not be built correctly, and it will become weak and collapse. And that's why we are to study God's word. We are to dwell on God's word. We are to think about God's word. And we are to follow God's word, and we obey God's word. So the more understanding and wisdom that we have, the more we understand this is what we need to be basing our life on, not what the world says for us to base our life on. And once we begin to study God's word and understand God's word, then we understand that we need to encourage others, the other workers of God's word. See, we all are workers of God's word. You need to pray for and encourage your pastor. He is facing scrutiny from the congregation. He's facing attacks from Satan. And he needs to feel that prayer. He needs to feel God's arms wrapping around him as he goes through the valley of death. And, it's extremely difficult for him. You need to pray for your deacons. You need to pray for your Sunday school teachers. You need to pray for every member of your church. That God will sustain them, that God will grant them understanding and wisdom and growth. And, you just need to be the encouraging person that everybody turns to in times of need. Because the reality of it is, we all need to grow in God. We need to encourage each other to remain strong. That world out there beats you down. It beats you over the head every minute of the day. Think about Jesus being whipped with the cat o' nine tails. That's basically what the world is doing to us every day. We need to pray for each other to obey God's word. We need to pray that we're going to spread the good news to everybody that we meet. That we're not, we're going to draw our strength from God, not from ourselves, so that we can go out there and face that bad world, that sinful world, and carry that good news to them saying, hey, you have a sickness, but I got the cure. This is what's wrong with you, and this is what you need. And that's what we need to be telling people. So, how do we encourage each other? Well, first off, simply say it. Tell each other, I'm praying for you. Tell each other how proud of them, of what they're doing, that you are of them. Tell them that you're praying for them every day. I'm here to tell you right now, just knowing that someone is praying for you every day is a huge blessing. It's a huge source of strength, because God is hearing that prayer and He's blessing you with His strength. And knowing that someone's praying for you gives you the strength to overcome. Send a text or an email just telling them, hey, I prayed for you this morning. Keep doing what you're doing. It's making a difference. You're making a change. You are being effective. It's just good to hear that. You may know it, but it's good to hear someone say, hey, I prayed for you, and just keep doing what you're doing. Make gifts of appreciation. It don't have to be a whole lot. It could be a card. It could be a jar of jelly. Whatever you come up with. Hey, I just appreciate what you're doing. Here you are. Make a donation to the church in someone's name. Give to the Gideons in remembrance of someone in someone's name, or whatever, or some other worthy Christian organizations for them. Say, I appreciate you, and I just want you to know that I gave a Bible in your name, or something like that. Show your appreciation by shaking their hands. Give them a pat on the back. Give them a hug, telling them how proud you are of what they're doing. Invite them to share in your ministry or mission with you. But the thing is, the greatest thing that you can do is simply encourage them. Let them know that you care. My prayer for you this week and for the rest of your life is to be an encourager. If at the end people can say, well, the one thing I can say about him was that he was always there to give encouragement whenever I needed it. What a great testimony that would be. So be an encourager in God. This week and the rest of your life. Until the next time, have a wonderful week.